for at least my presentation, we'll talk about the quantum revolution a little bit. Key concepts we touch about. So I picked two things, which is quantum communication and quantum computing. The reason why, because there's a showcase up there, and then a lot of those showcase is actually involving quantum communication and quantum computing. So before we talk about quantum revolution, so this is what people talk today. So in nation states, right, people talk about all the industrial revolution. So you have the normal steam engine moving to assembly line, computing, and then currently all the IoTs and all that. So this is the most popular thing today. But there's something similar also for the quantum portion, right? So the quantum portion, actually, if you look at it, when we first understand, when mankind first understand quantum, at least from the physical sides of it, right? There is innovation coming from there. So you've got actually things like the invention of lasers, right? Or things like the inventions of your CPUs today and all that. This is because we understand the quantum physical nature of it, right? So now where are we heading? We are heading to the second one. So we understand, right? So that's why we can invent lasers and all that. But now we want to manipulate it. So this is the next challenge. So moving from just understanding and then from there make applications from it. Now what we wanted to do is when we want to control those things at the atomic level, at the particle level. So this is where we are today. So this talk today, for at least for all the sessions, is about how we want to manipulate these quantum systems. So a little bit detour, right? Before we actually go into some of the details, so that everybody can actually key takeaways from the discussion, right? So the first thing is in the key concept in the quantum one, when you talk about whether it's computing level or at any quantum level. So there are three things, right? You have the normal superposition, right? So you have the entanglement and interference. So the first thing, the reason why we have to mention this is because why? Because there's nothing exists like this in the normal world, in the big world like us. So in the small things, right, in the quantum level, when you would talk about a representation of things, right, normally when you have a classical bit, you have zeros and ones, right? So the normal, so it's either 0 and 1. But in the quantum level, you can actually talk about superpositions of those things. This thing does not exist in our normal daily life, right? You don't, so imagine a light switch, right? So a light switch, imagine you have an on and off, right? So imagine a light switch that the current one that you see, you have a knob that you can turn around. So it's like, it can go fully on and then fully off and then somewhere in between. So how do you describe that? Like, it's so switch on the light. We want 90% to be on. So those kind of things. These are the things that you see at the quantum level. So that's why you have the problem of these cats and being alive and actually die at the same time. Right? So people are saying, well, there's a famous physicist saying that this kind of problem, what will happen if you have a cat in a box with some radioactive decay and all that, whether the cat is actually alive or dead. But we don't care about that. For this discussion, we don't care about that. And why this happened, why is it a cat in the first place? It's not a dog, right? So why is it a cat? It's simple. Because why? Because dog behave better. That's it. So that's why it's chosen as a cat. A cat you cannot control. So that's why you can have a dead and alive cat. But anyway, so another portion of key concept is entanglement. This thing only exists in the quantum world. It does not exist in our world today, in the big world. So the concept is, say for example, you flip a coin, right? So you flip a coin, then you have heads or tail, right? So what if I have 2 coins, right? I flip 2 coins. I have either heads, tails, those kind of things, right? And it's independent of one another. So, but what entanglement is imagine you have a coin, right? And you flip the coin, right? 2 coins. Entanglement has to involve 2 things, right? You cannot entangle. You cannot talk about entangle by itself. So imagine you flip 2 coins. So what does entangle mean if you flip 2 coins? If I flip 2 coins, I look at one coin and I see it's a head. Definitely I can tell what's the other coin. But it does not exist in the real world, in the world that we live in today. If I give you 2 coins, I flip the other one, what's the other one? You flip it again, you don't know, right? In this case, for quantum world, imagine where I have 2 coins, I have this coin prepared in entanglement manner, I give you 1 coin, I have 1 coin, you can travel anywhere around the world, I flip it, and since I measure it, that says it's in this state, or in this case, a head, what's the other one? If I measure it, it's still going to be heads, let's assume. So this is where it does not exist in the big world, it only exists in the quantum world. And the other portion is interference. Why are these key concepts important? Interference is like the wave interference and all that. Because during the idea in the quantum world, when you want to do computing for this, is you want to use all these properties that does not exist in a normal classical computing and exploit that and then give you the results. So that's the idea. So if you go away from this whole one day and says, what quantum stuff is all about? These 3 things, that's good enough. That's the first step. So when we talk about quantum computing or anything in the quantum world itself, right, we need to understand a few things. This is the key concept. In any computing world, at the quantum level, you need to know how to prepare it, how to actually compute or evolve it, and how to measure. These are the key 3 things. So in all this talk today, chances are they will talk about these 3 things, right? So if you have no background, no problem, as long as you know that when the person is talking, it's gonna be either they're talking about how do I prepare this, how to evolve it in time, and then how to measure it. That's it. That's what you do in quantum computing. So, like I said, I mentioned today, I'll talk about 2 things, quantum communication and actually quantum computing a little bit. So the first thing is I want to touch about quantum communication. There are 2 things. So it's actually, we'll talk about quantum security in the quantum communication portion, and a little bit about quantum networks. So in quantum in quantum communication, normally there are 2 topics that people talk about. The most things that people talk about is the random number generator and also a QKD, some sort of key distribution scheme for communication. The other one is the quantum repeaters. So let's talk about the business of random number first, right? So why is it important? So this is, forget about the whole algorithm by itself, right? Forget about the algorithm by itself. This is basically one popular algorithm. We don't bother about the algorithm. Why is quantum random? Why is random number important in the first place? If you look at the first step of this particular algorithm, this is in security. It says should be chosen at random. So you familiar with this? Should be chosen at random. This is how you answer exam questions, right? So you don't know what's the answer going to be. What's the just pick like A, B, C, D. Doesn't matter, right? So this is how things are done also, even at a practical level. So what do? Just pick. It's random. Just pick anything. So random number is a serious business. How serious it is? This is Cloudflare, how they do random numbers, right? What is this? It's lava lamp. This is how seriously Cloudflare take their random number business. This becomes seeds to their random number generator. So they take a picture. So by the way, the reason I picked this example is because why? Because there's a booth out there by one of our partners. So if you go out after this, take a break, you go out. This is part of the promotion also for the technologies that we have. There's a camera in one of the booth setup that's actually shooting at some background and all that, and translate that to random numbers. So this is almost similar what Cloudflare is doing. So this is how people take random numbers. Because why? Because generating random numbers is hard. So what people do today practically, right? So on your computer, you use mouse movement plus other things inside the computer system to just generate the seed for the random number. From there, you will try to actually generate an actual random through some algorithms. So that's normally how it does. So that's the random number portion. So there's a quantum. Quantum is what? Random by itself, right? So MIMOS has also done something similar. This is probably like 12 years back. The guy who's actually building this is here, right next. So there's a book up there showing all this also. You can please go and take a look. So quantum-based random number is almost, if it can be done perfectly, is almost as good as, probably better than the other technology that you can see for generating random numbers, right? But okay, random numbers, okay, that's nothing fancy and all that. So what are the things that people do? So in this case, how do you do things online, right? So you want to share secret. That's the most important thing, right? You want to share secret. So there's a lot of schemes today. See, this is one of the schemes. So for you to share secret, this is classical. This is nothing quantum about this and all that. So what you do is you develop some sort of algorithmic schemes so that they can share secrets between entities, right? This is how you do currently today. You pay internet and all that. You use these current schemes, right? But there's also something similar for quantum, right? This is something called quantum key distribution. So if you go to the booth, there's a booth. I'm not sure whether you noticed. There's a booth. There's a showcase demo on the left-hand side or right-hand side, if you look down there, right? From our partners, SDT. For them, I think they showcase a version of quantum key distribution, but they have multiple points, in this case, multiple Alice, that is actually connecting to the ecosystem and one ball. And then we also have one. We have done this before, also together with our mentor here, Prof. AZHAR. So the idea, key concepts is they use superpositions, right? In superposition, because when you are in superposition, if you prepare your cube, in this case Alice here, it's always Alice and Bob, why it's not Bob here, why Alice, I don't know. So this guy says, okay, it's Alice here. So if you pick a basis, right, in this case, you have a rectilinear and diagonal basis, and you actually prepare, basically, the concept is, if you prepare in one of the bases, right, in this case, rectilinear basis, but if you measure wrongly, so if you prepare in rectilinear, but you measure it in diagonal basis, things become random. So in this case, if you prepare, say in the rectilinear basis with up and left, right? But you measure it with a diagonal basis, the diagonal measurement for this diagonal left and right will be random. So you build schemes around this. So the idea is you build schemes around the superpositions of the particles that you're working with. In this case, it's something called BB84, right? So BB84 does, you pick a random photons, Alice, you want to send this, right? And then you pick a random particle, in this case photons, whether you prepare it in whatever state you are in, right? And then from there, Bob will try to measure it, right? Since Bob don't know what kind of basis that you're preparing, he's just going to measure it randomly. That is why the reason why you start with a quantum random number generator. All this, a lot of it is just randomly prepared and measured. And then from there, what you do is, once you have this measurement done, so what Bob will do is since we don't know what basis that Alice is actually prepared this, so Bob will actually share those bases to Alice, right? And from there, Alice tells Bob which one are correct. And then because they are correct in the terms of the basis measurement, you will get the correct results. So how does this help? And by the way, this one is done in actually classical thing. So which means this done is in the quantum manner, the below one is done classically, you exchange this classically. So how does this help in terms of your quantum key, in terms of secret sharing, right? So we say we want to share secret, we now encoded the data that we in this case in photons, then from there we do some schemes and all that, and we had a shared secret. So why is this considered secure? So the thing is, with quantum, right, you cannot just simply copy. So this is one of the properties of in quantum world. So the idea is, say for example, if I'm an eavesdropper, right, I want to actually look and see what's going on in the channel. So I pick one of the qubits, right? I pick one of the qubits, and this is, I want to actually see it. So the first thing, the obvious thing you're gonna ask me is, why don't I just copy this, right? Can I copy this? The answer is no. You cannot do that in the quantum world. You cannot just simply copy perfectly, and then from there, you actually send out the copy to the other party. You cannot do that. So what you have to do, basically, you have to actually measure it. But by measuring it, you are changing the states. And because of you are changing the states, part of the schemes can tell you whether you are trying to change the states. So this is where the properties of the quantum is being used. So now, for me, the one who's trying to communicate with another party can actually detect whether there's an interference within the communication channel. This is one of the things that you don't see in the real world, right? In today, if say for example, I want to steal your during the payment transaction and all that, I can make copies, no problem, and you cannot tell. So the idea is, right, in the classical world, is build a scheme that nobody can break. So that's the idea. So if you have a scheme that somebody can break, then basically that's the tipping point of your scheme, because right at the end of the day, then somebody can actually retrieve your data and all that. So in this scheme, you not actually can share secrets, and then you can use normal classical stuff and all that, but you can detect whether or not somebody is trying to actually eavesdropping in your communication part. So this is the lab. This is the setup that the team has built. This is, I think, in 2009. So what you see up there is a smaller version. What you see on the left also is from our partner, SDT, for a similar need, but they have a slightly more different configuration and all that. So these are among the team members. Last time, this is together with our, if I'm not mistaken, our Italian partners. Am I correct? Yeah, because he has a lot of, so the guy, so if you see the guy here, it's actually the same person, even though the hair is white. So he's the same person. So slightly more handsome than last time. So, but there's a lot of partners. So like I mentioned today, the reason for this scheme is because why? Because the way, it's one way to say there's security and all that. One of the things is because why? Because you can actually detect a person who's trying to do something to your data. So what's the actual vision for this? So people are talking about building the whole internet quantumly. That's the reason why. So is it possible in the future? You have, like current today, you have the computers, you have me and all that, right? Today, is it possible? Tomorrow, is it possible to build the whole ecosystem all using quantum technology? This is where the direction of people, where they want to take with these quantum networks. So what's the challenge? It's great, right? I don't want to say good things only, but we have to address also what's the challenges, right? So one of the challenges is, if you look the way it's being designed, is there is involved some sort of communication between the quantum portion and the classical portion. Like classically, it's like normal bits and so when you exchange bases, you don't exchange it in the quantum world. You exchange that in the world of classical computing, normal internet and all that. So what's the challenge? The challenge is you have to build trust first. So you have the quantum portion, but you want to communicate at the classical portion, right? But how do you communicate at the classical portion? Well, you have to use the classical schemes back. So it's kind of redundant, right? You have the classical scheme, right? The normal internet is using classical scheme. So now you introduce a quantum portion, but one of the requirements for the quantum portion is this classical communication. But how do you you cannot just simply change bases without some sort of protection in the classical communication, and it defeats the purpose. But then you have to use back the classical security schemes to protect that. So that's why they call it trusted nodes. So then that's where the challenge is, at least for quantum key distribution. So you have the quantum portion, yes, done, that is nice. But the challenge is because you have to introduce a classical portion, so it defeats the purpose of having quantum portion. Another portion is the limit and range. I think it has grown further. Previously, I think when the team looked at it, it was 10 kilometers, I'm not sure. Is it 10, around 10 kilometers, around that 40, 50 kilometers? The one that SDT showed us around what, 100 kilometers? Yeah, so it has improved further. But we're talking about quantum internet. Quantum internet connects the whole world. So that's where the challenge is, right? You cannot just have one point-to-point communication. You have to be like an internet. So that's why the talk is about quantum repeaters and all that. The third portion is this, when we say security, when we talk about it classically, we talk about classically in practice because we have evolved. I mean, internet itself has evolved 30, 40 years. So there's a lot of things that has happened. And with that, we have learned a lot of things. With the quantum portion, the challenge is because it's just starting. So a lot of it are theoretical words. So the challenge is to put it in practice and how to make it happen in real life situation. So among the critics, they would see quantum key distribution does not offer anything significantly, but no problem. As all technology, this will improve, right? As all technologies, it's like our processors and all that, not a problem. This will improve in the future because why? That's why we are here today to discuss. If we spend a lot of time, train more resources, put a lot of investment, then this technology will improve. And this is the future where we're heading. And then a lot of us, especially in these people in this room, are banking on this technology. So we're done with the communication part, right? Let's talk about a little bit. Okay, we can do quantum key distribution, we can do key exchange and all that. Classically, we can do this also. But what really spurs, at least between us, at least when me, being here for like 30 years and all that in MIMOS. So what spurs is previously in the media, there's something called the Shaw algorithm, right? So Peter Shaw, the guy in this picture here, right? So he made quantum computing famous. Why he made quantum computing famous? Because he says, basically, I mean, I wouldn't say he says, a lot of media hype around it, and media says the algorithm that he has actually designed can break the cryptographic ecosystem that is actually being designed at that time, the one that we use on the internet today. So if so you have the algorithm, if we can invent a quantum computing system that can handle the algorithm, technically, classically, at least at that point, the crypto system that is being designed can be broken. This is what it says. So, and then from there, the hype keeps going on, right? So Google announced quantum supremacy. Quantum supremacy is basically they have designed a quantum algorithm, a quantum computation that surpasses what classical computing can do. I mean, really surpasses, which means it's not that cannot be, you can run superclusters of nodes of computing power and all that. It will take thousands and thousands of years before it can be done even on a high performance computer. So what's really the, but here's the catch, right? Here's the catch. This is where one of the things the critic says for this, yeah, I mean, you can try to solve it, but the problem that you try to solve, there's no value in it, right? So in terms of scaling of the technology, if you look at IBM, they promises in 2023, there's a lot of more and more qubits and all that. So there's a lot of hype around this. So why is it superior? Okay, let's go back to the concept before we go into the detail. Right? So let's assume I have a, let's assume I want to find, I have a box or a jar with something in it, right? It's a car. It cannot be, but anyway, that's not. There's a cow, fish, lettuce, and apple, right? It's a jar in a car. Cow cannot fit in a jar, but anyway, that's not right. I'm not sure why I wrote that, but anyway. So the question is, I want to find a vegetable, right? I want to find a vegetable, right? So how do you do this classically, right? So you have to actually look at it one by one. Is this a cow? No, it's not a cow. Is it a vegetable? No, it's not a vegetable. Is it a apple? Is a vegetable? No, it's not apple. We can argue about it, but for this, just work with me. So an apple is not. It's a fruit. It's not a vegetable, right? A lettuce is vegetable. A fish is not. So we have to query it one by one. What's the nice thing about quantum? Like I mentioned just now, you have the concept of superposition and all that. So you can ask this all at once. You can ask the system, is it a cow, an apple, a lettuce, or a fish? And the system says, it's a lettuce. But there's a reason. There's a reason why this is small and this is big. So it says, yes, it's a lettuce, but it can also be a cow, but with a small probability. This is the nature of quantum computing. So when you do measurement, right, you don't only get the actual answer that you want, but you also get other things. So this is the beauty of quantum computing. So what do? You want to design a scheme to make this bigger, to make the output that you want bigger, right? The rest of it you want to make it small because all these are probabilistic, right? So as long as you make this very small, then you can get the answers that you want. That's what they do in quantum computing anyway. So let's take an example, right? So example is, I have given a sequence of numbers, right? In this case, this is a sequence of numbers, 1, 3, 4, and 8, 1 to 4 and 8, right? 1 to 4 and 8, right? I want to find the period of this function. There's a relevance to this, so I want to find a period for this function. So how do I do that? Compare this sequence to this sequence, right? This sequence has no period, right? You just go through the sequence, there's no period, right? So how do I find period in this, right? Well, before we start doing quantum stuff, let's look at classically how do we do this. You can do this classically also, right? So, like a lazy student, what do? I go to Wolfram Alpha because they say computational intelligence and today is quantum intelligence. That's why I choose Wolfram. You can use anything you want. Does not matter. So, what do? We say we want, there's something called a discrete Fourier transform, right? So you in background with engineering and all that, you know this, right? So you do Fourier transform, you want to find the basically the components of the signals. So the idea is similar here. The period is, so a sequence, you have a sequence, you want to find a period. It's also something similar. So you say, I put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? I ask Wolfram and says, what is the Fourier transform for this? Right? This is what I get, right? So does these numbers mean anything? Right? It means nothing, right? That's basically what I'm saying. It means nothing. This number means nothing, right? So what if we have a sequence, right? Now we have a sequence that has a period 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 2, 3, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you take a discrete Fourier transform for that particular number. What do we get? We have some sort of a pattern, right? Can you agree with me on this? Right? You see that? If you don't believe me, I'll try the different sequence. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right? You see that it follows. It's a complex number, by the way. So if you need a pressure of complex number, but it doesn't matter. At this point, it does not matter. We just want to see whether there is some sort of pattern, right? So you see 10, 0, 0, 0, and then 1, 0, 0, followed for something. You see here, it's 6, 0, 0, followed by 15, 0, 0, and all that. So you see a pattern of this. So I'm putting in sequence. But I've chosen this sequence to make it nice so that you can see. So in real life, it's not going to be this nice. So why is this important, right? So what we know is if I put a sequence that's periodic like this, and then I put it in some sort of discrete Fourier transform, this is basically the magnitude just now we calculate, but don't worry about that. So we see a pattern, right? We see a pattern. What is the pattern? We see the output will be 0 in those sequence in the in the repeated portion where is, in this case, the period is 4, right? In between of that, we see zeros. But in those 4 periods, we see some numbers, right? So that's, you get that? You agree, right? From this, right, from this number, you plot it, this is what we see. We see zeros, space with some numbers, zeros, space with some numbers. And this space is basically the period that we looking for, right? So this is we do it classically. So in real life, like I mentioned, in real life, it will not be as beautiful as that. I already said I picked the sequence so that we can see but the concept is the same. The concept is it will be an evenly spaced period. Spikes, you see spikes within the sequence. When you take a Fourier transform of the any sequence that has a period, it has no period, you won't see the spikes. So what is the beauty of the quantum portion? The quantum portion is replacing the discrete Fourier transform for this with a quantum Fourier transform. Why is this important? Why is this important? Because here, if we do classically, we have to do it one by one, right? We calculate one by one. But if you do it quantumly, all this can be in one operation. I mean, it's neat, but in just one single shot of computation. So that's the difference. So why? So we're talking about periods and all that. Why is this important, right? So it's actually important is because why? In the algorithm we see just now that protects how we do transaction and all that, there's an algorithm that says if you can find a period of certain numbers, then you can actually factor the primes that you're looking for. So this is the basis of your classical cryptography, the RSA algorithm. So, but the basic of finding the factors involving finding period. So if you find a period that you can factor, then basically it breaks your cryptography. So, but finding period is not easy classically. So that's where you use the quantum portion, in this case the quantum Fourier transform. You do it in one single operation, then you can actually break this. So this is where people start to see, wow, this might be something that we need to be looking at. And that's why at that time this algorithm is very important. So if you look at an assumption, the gate time is the gate time for your quantum computers. And then this is the qubit is actually, the n is actually your classical, the numbers that is n, okay, how many bits to represent this. So if you want, you have this kind of qubits, so how many hours it will take, so in this case RSA, 455, 458, so you can replace n here with 458, that's how many qubits that you need. So how many years you take in CPU, practically, for this, and then using the quantum algorithm, with this amount of qubits, how many hours it will take. That's the difference, that's the magnitude that we're talking about. So in today's world, currently, that's why you don't use classically these low numbers of bits for RSA, right? So it's already cracked in 1999, and also for 768 qubits, it's already cracked in 2008, right? So 1024 is not, but it's not recommended. So that's why you go for higher bits and all that. So this is where people start talking about quantum computing at first, right? So now, what else? I mean, you're telling me it's just only for factoring numbers and all that, and you know what I'm saying? So what else can it be done with quantum computers? So the most popular topic today is AI, right? So everybody is used about, so ChatGPT, DeepSeek and all that. So I've never tried DeepSeek before. So I've used ChatGPT a lot and all that, and all other generative AIs. And so among the things that people are looking today is how can it be used to actually speed up computational time, comparing the current neural network today to the quantum. And here's the good thing. The good thing about current AI design, or at least for the neural network perspective, it has a similar analogy, right? So if you look at the classical portion, right, for your neural network, at least the current one, you have an input, you have some sort of hidden layers and all that, you have your output, right? So in the quantum world, it's also the same. You have your input, you have your hidden layers, and you have your output. So why is this important? Because why? Because there's direct analogy, which means that you can almost directly fit the problems of the neural network into the quantum, almost. So let's try to understand this, right? So I'm giving you an example. How is this going to be used, right? And hopefully we have, I mean, one of the key takeaways from this is you have an understanding how does this fit into quantum computing fits into the current AI technology. So let's pick a problem. Let's pick a simple problem. This problem is simple. You have square boxes, right? So you have squares in, and then the squares are actually color coded, right? So the color coded squares, you can have an option of one of them to be a different color, or two of them to be a different color, or three of them to be in different color, or all of them, which is separate, right? So this is one example. So we want to build a system, but what do we want to build? We want to build a system that recognizes if the columns and row are the same color. So that's the problem that we want to solve, right? You get what I mean? Say for example, this box right here, right? You have one of it is actually of a different color, so the row here does not match, right? It's red and blue. It's not of the same color. So we don't want this. We want something like this. Either the rows or the column match in different color. It can be all the same color, right? It does not matter, right? But this is what we want, right? So our output system, we want to actually have all this possibility. We have all this possibility. We want to output where our answer is just only this, right? All the rows or the column of same color or same combination. Okay. Okay. Understand, right? So this is where we want to. So we want a system that takes the input of all these color-coded boxes. We want to output this kind of system. How does this relate to neural network? Don't worry, we'll get there. So I just want to understand. You understand the basic problem. This is a toy problem. So because it's a quantum system, right? So when we measure this is what we want to get, right? We want to get this, right? This is what we want to get. Remember. So this is just a representation of the boxes, right? So our output system must output this combination. This is what we want to achieve, right? And the probability should be the same. The rest of it, if possible, we do not want to have any results in this, right? You get me, right? So you have, if it's labeled as the rate is labeled as 0, so the first one will be 0. We have that probability as 1/6 because it's the 6 answers that we want to get. Then the rest of it we want to be 0. This is what we want to achieve. Right? This is the system that we want to build, and we want to compute to achieve these results. So don't worry, don't discuss it. I'll try to go faster a little bit. So first of all, we will use there's different ways of how. So remember just now the basic concept. You have to prepare, then do some operations, then measure, right? So we want to prepare first. So how we want to prepare this? We want to encode our data in the angle of the qubits that we want to represent. So this is what we want to do. So how does why do I choose the angle in the first place? So don't worry about it. It will connect later on when how this fits into the neural network problem. How we want to optimize this. So we want to encode this into the angle, right? So we have that thing just now, right? 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, all 3. We want to encode this. In this case, we want to encode it in the rotation of the Z portion. Right? So don't worry about that first. So the concept is, okay, we already encode it, right? And then we want to rotate it. So we want to rotate. So because we want to do operations, right? So the operation is basically the operation of a qubit is just rotation around this sphere. That's the representation of it. So we want to rotate it around whatever basis that we choose, right? So in this case, why this architecture like this? Don't worry about that first, right? This is just an example, because choosing a circuit is also architecture for the space is also important. But we won't discuss this. At least we just want to understand why why this problem connects to the neural network, right? So what we want to do is we just want to do some operation. In this case, some rotation, right? So we rotate it around the y-axis, then we rotate it again around the z-axis. Then we entangle it. We entangle it again. We entangle it again, and then we do some measurement, right? Okay, we just do some operation, right? So don't worry about the operation yet. We do some operation, and then at the end of the day, we want to do measurement. So we got a measurement, right? In this case, this is the measurement. Up, down, down, up. So what we say is this particular, for the first trial that we ran this experiment, we got an output from 0 to 0 all the way to 0, 1, 1, 0. So up, down, down, up, right? Okay. You get me, right? You okay with this? So then we run this, right? We run this, keep repeating, and we run this again and again. So what kind of decision we got? We got this, right? It's random, right? Quantum only is you don't get what you want. This is so you running again and again and again, you don't get it, right? So, but what we want is this, right? Back to our original problem. What we want, because our answers is like this. This is what we want, right? All the rows and columns, right, is going to be at least the same color, right? So this is what we want, but this is what we got. So how do we going to go from here to here? This is where the concept of training from neural network comes into play, right? So what's the parameter we're talking about? It's basically the angle, right? So we're talking about angle of rotation just now. So what we wanted to do is actually from the circuit that we have and keep improving the parameter, in this case the angle, so that we get the distribution that we want. That's where you keep updating the angles, right? So from there, you will actually move from here to here. So how do I update the angle? So this is where you see this in the normal AI or neural network computing, right? So you have a loss function, right? What does the loss function say? The loss function says how different it is from my distribution that I got to the one that I expected, right? So this is, you find it similar, right? For this you have a neural network or machine learning background. You have something called a mean squared error, right? So what is mean squared error? Mean squared error is basically how far your predicted, if it's time series data, how far your predicted output compared to the actual data sets. So this is basically what it is. So I have this and I have this. This is what I want. This is what I have. So I want to move this to here. So how different it is from this to here? This is how I compute. That's basically for me to say how far I am from the actual results that I want. So I keep updating the angles. But what's the strategy to update the angles? Remember, we're doing rotations right now. We keep rotating and all that. So basically, we're playing around with the angles, whether it does not matter whether it's, in this case, we use the rotation around the y-axis and also the rotation around the z-axis, right? So you keep updating that. So that is the strategy on how you want to update the angles. So that it becomes this. And you see similar? It's similar, right? So this is where why people are considering using quantum technology also for computation, unlike the training model currently right now. You hear about open AI, ChatGPT, and then they declare we train this model and all that. So in order to compute, say for example, ChatGPT 3.0, in order to compute the training data, I mean, at least from the numbers that I've seen, on a single GPU, it will take you years, right? That's why they have clusters of nodes. So they train close to 1,000 plus GPU classes, so that they want to speed up the process. So with quantum, you actually need single computation of this, right? But there are much more challenging problems for that one. Because today architecture, there's something called attention, right? So if you're familiar with the machine learning and all that, so today current ChatGPT, I mean this we will cover later on, I think with one of the deep detailing the other parameter talks. So today ecosystem of AI, there's something called attention, right? So this is the heart of the current machine learning architecture today. So in a lot of the it doesn't matter which ecosystem you burn, or ChatGPT or DeepSeek and all that, they basically something called snap attention. So this is the paper that make it famous and all that. So the idea is simple. The idea is all these, basically you have words, right? So words are then represented in terms of numbers. It's going to be a vector, but don't worry about that for us. It's going to be represented in numbers. So the concept is, if word is going to be represented as numbers, right? So what is it going to be challenging going to be? The challenge is there are some words that's ambiguous, right? Let's not talk about the gender stuff, whatever we're thinking and all that, right? So this is just words. So let's focus on that. So words can be very ambiguous. In this case, in our example, we have fruits and we have computers and handphones, and we have a word called apple, right? Where does apple fit? So you don't know. It can be here. It can be fruits. It can be technology. So you don't know. So then, how do you actually make these words? How do you know? In this case, in this particular word, which is an apple, fall in this category or this category? You need context, right? That's what attention is. It's actually how to bring context into the picture. So in this case, if the context is I'm talking about fruits, right? There will be other words that is fruits, right? Or if I'm counting, if I'm talking about technology, but there are words related to technology. So the idea is you want to stretch those using the context, right? In this case, you want to stretch the word apple, right, closer to fruits if this is the context. Or in this case, if it's talking about the technology portion, so then the apple is stretched too closer to here. That's basically what attention is, right? So, voila, that's people already doing this, right? They already started looking. So the idea is people are already looking into this, right? So even the most popular one today, that people are already looking how to actually transfer this problem into the quantum portion. And why is it? Because like I mentioned just now, training is hard. It will take a lot of time. So one way to look at it is how to speed things up. Is some of the portion is using quantum, similar like the case before. So this is an example of the speed ups that can use that people have actually. These are all theoretical anyway. When using classical algorithm compared to quantum just now. But the basis is there, it's similar, right? So then with that, people keep counting quantum can actually do a lot more than that. So, but the way, if you look at it, right, what is the really killer, when you talk about it, when you talk about this quantum stuff, what is the killer app for this quantum computation? Right? People talk about, okay, we have the technology, we can try to actually break some crypto systems and all that. We can apply this in the quantum, in the AI portion and all that. Great. But if you look at current HPC today, right? I mean, if you look at HPC by itself, why people build HPC in the first place. This is an example of Oak Ridge. Oh, use this one. So this is the example of Oak Ridge, right? You look at the problem that they're trying to solve. What's the problem that they're trying to solve? They're trying to solve quantum problem using classical machines, right? And this is where I feel in the future, if this thing can be built, hopefully, I mean, we are heavily invested in this, and we think that it's going to be built somewhere along the line in the future. But the real problem is they will solve quantum problems. Right? When we talk about material, all these are quantum problems, right? Chemistries, nanoscience, and all that, these are all relating to quantum problems. This is where the killer app for quantum. So imagine asking the question, if you have quantum computer, and then you want to simulate something, you want to design a room temperature superconductor. Can you do that? It's going to be a challenge. Even for quantum computer, it's going to be a challenge, right? So because why? It's a super hard problem. So chances are what the theoretics, people with this kind of background will do, make a toy model that we made just now and all that, and figure out how to actually move there. Even the toy model is very hard to work, so the computation is a lot. So this is where, for the future, people are already talking about high performance quantum computing. We're not talking about high performance computer anymore, high performance quantum computing. So what does it mean? It means that taking quantum problems, using quantum computer and solve it. So why a problem like this would be good? So later on, that you will see, I think with the presentation that will be coming out after this, for quantum computers today, right? One of the things that you will use is something called a superconducting qubit, superconducting ecosystem, right? So those ecosystem is actually being run at super cool temperature, very low temperature. We're not talking about 0 degrees Celsius and all that. We're talking about close to 200 plus degrees Celsius. So you have to cool it. So that's the challenge. So one of the things is, if you can design and use a quantum computer to do that, design a room temperature superconductor. It will be great. Solve a lot of problems, right? If you see one of the shows back there, you see the actual quantum computer while with one of our partners, Anion, right? One of their problems is, how do you cool this? Right? So another problem is, two of those problems is the problem of climate change, right? So can you design a catalyst, right, that can absorb carbon or nitrogen in the environment? A super catalyst that is efficiently absorbing this. So those are kind of problems that chances are will be used to fully maximize quantum computers. There will be others, but this is where I think the killer app will be. Because why? Because these are the things that you cannot just simply do. It's very difficult to do classically. We talk about this later on. So you have the categories of emulators. We're not talking about this, right? This is basically you're trying to simulate a quantum system using whatever system that we have today. So this tool is basically what we have here today in the technology around the world. So there's something called quantum annealers, right? And then there's also something called, basically this is the quantum computers that we're talking about, big guys and all that. So quantum annealers is basically a quantum computing analogous to, how should I say it? To the analog world, So basically they can compute, but they are not universally like the quantum computer that we want to build, right? They are basically good at certain problems. A lot of it are optimization problems and all that. So what we are talking here when we talk about in general quantum computing and all that is basically this category. So this is what we want to achieve when you use quantum computers and all that. Why is it noisy? Because one of the challenges for the quantum computers itself would be, okay, I'm almost at the end. don't worry. So basically, how do you form qubits physically? This we will touch more later on the other talks that will be presented by our presenter all the way throughout the day, right? So basically, you have atomic version, solid state version, liquid, I think not copper, so this is on quantum version. So, and the good thing is, some of it is already here, actually in this area. So, say for example, I think there's an example of, sorry, that one is NV diamonds. I think there's a showcase up there. So you want to look at the actual devices to actually do an operation, but using a qubit that is built with diamond NV centers. So there's a booth up there in the middle booth. There's a superconducting sample in one of the in one of the booth also. It's in the, because it's scattered around, so it's in the round room. It's in the round room. So that's an example of that there. So the good thing is, if you have never seen one live, right, you can actually go to the booth and see that live. So this is how the actual, so from the, if you're doing just normal programming and all that, you don't care about that. But if you want to really look at it, how it's actually needs, what kind of machines they've been using and how to control it, so you can look at live in some of the booths that they have out there. Together with our partners, so I thank STT and Anion for bringing all the equipment here to show. So basically, so I don't go about details. So those are some of the examples. You know, the most popular one is like ion traps. Ion traps is basically, it's like how you cage. What is ion? Ion, you have, you have your atomic, you have an extra either electron or whatever and all that. So you have something called cation or anion, more positive or more negative. Doesn't matter. So those are ions. So how do you actually do it? You do it in control it in some sort of electrical fields. So this is normally how you do it. But don't worry, like I said, this one will cover, and some of it are very popular. Superconducting are very popular. Superconducting is made popular because why? Because the big guys are there, right? IBM is going to that route. Google is probably going to that route also. And you have Microsoft is here, Majorana. So you want to know what? Sorry. So Majorana is actually here. So Microsoft is here. How far they're going to take with the technology and all that is, it's like I mentioned, there's sometimes there's a lot of hype behind it, right? So people get excited and all that, but I mean, you have to read in between the lines and all that. So all these are competing technologies, by the way. Does not mean that just because IBM is there, Google is there, they're going to win the race and all that. It does not matter, right? All these are actually probable solutions to actually building one. So we're not saying today there's a clear-cut winner. There's no clear-cut winner yet. That is why people are heavily invested in this, right? So photonics, this is what Prof. Reza also done previously with MIMOS and all that. So he's using photons. This is basically using light. So this is an example where we are today, right? Roughly. So you have your little atom, trap ions and all that. So people are competing against this. This is a race, right? Hopefully there will be one clear winner. It does not matter who, but if there is a one clear winner and all that, we all benefit. So one of the important thing is things like this. Coherence time. So coherence time is why? Because like I mentioned, this is actually a quantum system, a small system. So a small system, one of the challenges is basically your environmental noise. So it's a lot of things that can affect the quantum system. Why? Because if this affects the quantum system, then basically it affects your measurement, and you do not want that. So there's a lot of investment in this. For us, looking at one logical qubit, there's probably 3 or 4 actual physical qubits just to make it run. So a lot of challenges how to actually build a system, quantum computing system that can actually handle noise. So that's among the major challenges. So like I mentioned just now, one of the problem is errors. Errors can come from anywhere, environment and all that. Okay, great. They already mentioned to me, maybe go faster. So basically, I'm on the last slide. So why is it important to Malaysia, right? Why is it important to Malaysia? We have Penang for semiconductor today. we have been in for semiconductor, right? And then not just companies from private, we invested, as the government of Malaysia, we also invested to make Penang happen. Do we have one today for Pampa? We don't have one. So in the future, chances are, this is where the similar semiconductor industry started a couple of decades ago. In the future, there will be similar industry for Pampa. People are betting big time for this. So what I'm trying to impress today is, at the end of this, right, work with us, work with MIMOS, right? We are seeing that today, we have good partners and all that. We hope the government believe in us, invest, and we want to build future later on, something like the semiconductor industry here as a start in MIMOS. That's what we want. We want our partners, we see from universities, we see from investment companies and all that, we see from commercial entities, we see from government sectors and all that. We have to actually be united in this. Because why? This kind of stuff is not cheap. So, once again, what we want to say is, here are we, MIMOS, we calling this day, we want to champion this, let's work together.